So this is the timing chain cover. It's stainless, I believe, or aluminum, I don't remember. And it just covers the timing chains with oil. And I noticed I'm having a little oil leak somewhere. So I looked up through the gasket right here, and I can see oil seeping out right here through the gasket, and it's running down right there onto my oil filter and then dripping to the ground. So that's going to be a pretty good sized project to do. I got to take all my pulleys off. I got to take the water pump off, drain the coolant, and get the timing chain cover off. So let's get into it. First thing I'm going to do is loosen my alternator pulley. So I'm going to have to loosen this bar, and that you tighten that and it makes tension for the belt. And then I'll loosen up this one for the power steering. Get the two belts out of the way. I'm probably going to have to take this bracket off on both sides. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. I went ahead and cracked the radiator bleed so I could get the radiator empty, because I got to take off the water pump, which has a radiator hose right there. And I got the pulley belts off. And I think I'm going to end up taking off the alternator and the power steering pump just to get the extra weight off the water pump. Now my coolant is still draining, but if I were to open up the radiator cap, it would let air get through it and push the water out quicker, or the coolant out quicker. But I don't want it to splash and make a mess. So while I'm letting that go, I could take this hose off, and then right here is a big, like a 2-inch radiator hose. And then this pulley could stay. And once those two are off, I'll take this one off right here, and then take off the 4 bolts, pull the water pump out. And then I'm probably gonna have to take off the harmonic balancer down there, this guy right here, and that pulley, which that's gonna be a bitch, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, water pump is out. Now the hardest part is getting this dampener off, bushing, and getting the timing plate cover off. There's a couple bolts there. It's still hooked to the mechanical fuel pump. I'm pretty sure I have a gasket for that, so I might just pull that off, set that to the side. Forgot to mention, disconnect the ground on the battery before you do anything. And here we go. Welcome back to another video of the 66 Galaxie 500. And in this video, I'm going to pull the transmission out to have it fully rebuilt. It's a Ford C6 FE transmission. It has the Cruise-O-Matic valve body in it, and it's just the original transmission. So I'm gonna have it sent to a local transmission shop to put a new valve body, a shift kit, and all the gears and stuff inside of it. But it shouldn't be too bad. First thing you want to do is put the car in neutral. So when you take off the drive shaft right here, you could push the car and it'll rotate that gear. And then once that's out, then we could start taking all the cooling lines off and get to work. Drive shaft is out. Remember, tape your U-joint needle bearings right there, because if those fall, you're almost screwed. Next stop, I'll unhook the parking brake right here, and then the speedometer cable, the 2 cooling lines. I got a vacuum line right here that I probably have to hook on top. I might drain the coolant first and get going. Hardest part about this is my little mini starter to take out. That's a bitch to reach up there, but I did it twice. So. Got the starter down. I was able to bring a long extension through the headers to reach it from right here. Next, since I'm up here, I'm going to disconnect my vacuum line right there and take some of these bolts off. That bolts the transmission housing to the block. A few more bolts around the transmission to take off. They're right here. There's a little backing plate that needs to come off that you could reach the flywheel to the torque converter and bolt that. But I think right now we're gonna lower the tranny pan and drain some of the fluid and take off my linkage. And coolant looking a little brown. I'll let that drain out, and then I'll put the pan back on and put it down. There's the valve body of the C6. It is brown, a little red. I'm gonna get some brake cleaner and kind of clean it off a little bit and see what it looks like. See that? Come right off. Starter is off. I took the couple bolts off on the top. I drained the oil from the transmission, cleaned it, put the pan back so I could grab it. Took off the 2 cooling lines right there. And next step, I'll finish taking off the linkage right there. I will put a transmission jack under the transmission to hold the weight and take off this cross member. Got the transmission jack supporting it. I got a rope to tie it around so it wouldn't fall. I took the dust cover off. I gotta take these 4 bolts off that's holding the flex plate to the torque converter, and then it's ready to rock and roll. Got the torque converter all in bolted. I had to put a pipe wrench up there and turn the crank to let everything turn here to reach all those bolts. Got the tranny off the engine. There's the torque converter. It's a 3200 RPM. And now we gently got to lower it down. Finally got the shit down, and I could rest. Next stop to the transmission shop. I'm gonna end up taking the radiator out, just like I put a gear puller to pull that off. I just have 2 little bolts right here, one on each side. Now come right out, and then try pulling that dampener out. Okay, radiator is out of the way, not too bad. Plenty of room for me to get here and get this timing chain cover off. But again, I need to get a gear puller right here and pull this dampener off, pull this bushing out, zip those off. I might clean these surface heads right here where the gaskets were for the water pump, because that way I don't want the gasket materials to fall in the oil, because these FE motors are weird, and the bottom of the timing chain cover bolts on top of the oil pan like 2 inches. So essentially when I take the cover off, there's going to be a 2-inch opening of the oil pan with oil, and I definitely don't want shavings in the oil. So I'll probably just trace off the oil pan and put a piece of cardboard there or something taped to keep any gasket material falling in there. So I got my pulley puller on, or I guess a gear puller, 9/16 ratchet wrench. I did put 2 little paint lines to make sure everything goes in the same way that's coming out. But the crank has a little groove in it, so essentially they could only go in one way. So I just did it just for the hell of it, but you could see it's already starting to separate right there when I'm going on it. And again, this motor's only not even a year old, so all that shouldn't be stuck. And once the pulley comes out, this should come out. If not, could get some pliers or something and kind of wiggle it out. And off to the next step. So this bushing right here is a little tight, so I got another kind of puller, and I just tighten this against the crank, and it's pulling that out pretty easy. I'm just doing it hand tight, and I can't film it with one hand, but that's pretty much how you get that off. And hopefully it clears the little pin right there. Got that off, not bad at all. Now I'm going to scrape this surface. I just have a little gasket scraper. You know, you could use a razor blade, but just want to go like that and get all of it clean. And then I'll do the same on the water pump. And then once those are clean, then we take that off. The most important thing you need to do when you're working on your motor is stay hydrated. I got the water pump flange gasket cleaned off pretty good. I ended up unhooking the fuel pump right there with these two hoses, just so when I take that timing chain cover off, I could get it out and really clean that up, and so it looks a little bit better. There's like 4 oil pan bolts that bolt from the oil pan to the timing chain cover. You gotta zip those off and make sure you don't rip the gasket. So you make sure you want to be very careful when you peel the gasket off the timing chain cover, because right here it's like a 2-inch opening of the oil pan, and you don't want stuff to fall into the oil. I mean, if it does, you could just drop the oil pan and get it out or whatever you gotta do, but just kind of go easy with it. And remember, the timing chain cover also bolts to the oil pan. So there's gonna be a gasket that's gonna rip right there, and then you're gonna have to cut it. And the new kit I have gives you a little piece of gasket to go around like that. Okay, so there's the timing chain and the crank pulley. This little offset thing, when it turns, it hits the fuel pump, and that's what makes the pressure. But you can see the opening right here, and you don't want to get stuff in the oil. As you see the oil pump, but I gotta clean this oil pan off from the old gasket, clean all this off. So I'm probably gonna put a piece of cardboard or something right here to help cover that. Get all that clean, and then get the oil or the other timing chain cover clean and go back. Okay, I got that face all clean from the gaskets. Wiped off any little pieces of crap. Made sure I dried all the face, and now I'm gonna go wipe up the rest of the oil splashes or gas splashes or whatever, and get the timing chain cover cleaned up, glue the gasket on, plug her back on. See my little custom cardboard with some vice grips just to hold it down. That seemed to work out pretty good. All right, now we gotta do this all over, but in reverse. Got the gasket all glued down to the timing chain cover, and on the outside, which is going to stick to the motor. And I got the new gasket on the transmission, or the oil pan, glued down, and silicone on top. I'm using the gray RTV, which came with my kit. I know it's not pretty, but it's going to be hidden, and I'll wipe it all up when I'm done. Just be careful you don't slide the gasket around when you put the bolts in. Don't forget your Loctite. Torque them down. I'm going about 20 pounds. Okay, got my fuel pump put back on, the fuel line in and out. Got this piece in there. Remember, it has a groove. And then I got the dampener on with the little key that I put back. And I just tightened the main 15/16 bolt. So I sucked it all in, then I put a pipe wrench and backed it up right there. I think I'm gonna throw the water pump back on, and water pump and the alternator and the power steering. Water pump's on, these bolts are tight, but I'm gonna go about 18 to 20 foot-pounds torque right there. I might just put the rest of the pulleys back on before I put the radiator. Now at this time, I got my power steering pump all tight, the alternator all tight. Luckily I put these little turnbuckles, so you just get a nice 1/16 wrench and twist it, and it spreads it out and gets that tight. I got my heater lying here, got that one connected. Everything is tight, ready to go. Last step, drop the alternator, and make sure you put coolant, get all the air out of it. And I won't be able to start this because I'm working on the tranny as well, but we'll see one more clip. All right, I got my rear radiator hose clamp on. one of the cooling lines for the transmission, the other one on right there. My electric fans are all wired up back together. These 4 bolts that bolt from the oil pan to the timing chain cover, got those torqued down. Everything looks good underneath here. Now let's do one final inspection up on top on the motor. That about does it for this video on this 1966 Ford Galaxie 500, the 390 FE big block. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I don't have to do any more videos on this car. Bye. Oh, and don't forget to clean all your tools and put them away. This is a little excessive, but I'd rather have every possible tool I needed.